This story is part of the Grumpy Neighbour series. For the best experience, I recommend listening to I Kissed My Grumpy Neighbour and After That Night first. Links are in the description box. After the Silence. An Loon romance story. Chapter 1. Mia. I made it exactly 3 steps into my flat before the tears fell. Stupid. I was so stupid. I should have known better than to catch feelings for Daniel. I'd known from the start that he was closed off. Guarded. But I'd gone and fallen for him anyway, and now I was paying the price. I sank onto my sofa and let myself cry. After a while, I wiped my face, blew my nose, and made myself a cup of tea. I was not going to be that girl. The one who pined after a man who'd made it crystal clear he didn't want what she wanted. This was not my first rodeo. I'd done that before with Tom, wasted months hoping he'd realize that I was the girl of his dreams. I thought I was in love. I had allowed the slow erosion of myself by making myself smaller, so he could feel bigger. Never again. If Daniel only wanted something physical, that was fine. But I wanted more than that. I deserved more than that. I pulled out my phone and called Amara. We had become close since she showed me the ropes at work. She turned up with a bottle of wine and would not listen to my protests that it was a work night. We ate ice cream and washed it down with the exorbitantly pricey wine. Eventually Amara said, "Do you know what you need?" I smiled weakly. "A month-long nap?" "A dating app," she said brightly. I laughed. "Absolutely not." "Why?" she asked. "You're smart, you're gorgeous, and you clearly know what you want. This would be on your terms." She grabbed my phone and downloaded a dating app. I was too exhausted to stop her. "I will delete it later," I said to myself. Chapter 2. Daniel. "I like you," Mia said softly. My chest tightened. "I didn't mean to," she continued. "And I didn't plan for it. But I do. And I'm willing to work at this. At us. If you are." There was a roar in my ears. My heart felt like it was going to pop out of my chest. I had to wipe my palms on my slacks. I couldn't deal with this right now. I turned away from her. But she didn't go away. She was still standing there waiting for an answer. I took a deep breath and said, "I'm attracted to you, I won't pretend otherwise." I watched her face shudder, and her eyes fill with hurt. She held herself like she was expecting a blow. I said it anyway. "All I can offer you is physical. Nothing more." Her eyes shone bright with unshed tears. I wanted to take back my words. To make her feel better. But I couldn't. The words hung in the air between us like shattered glass, sharp and impossible to take back. I watched her walk out of my flat, her back ramrod straight. She opened her door and closed it softly behind her. I knew I had lost her. But I also knew I had saved both of us a lot of heartbreak. Because it would have ended anyway. People inevitably changed. I stood in my doorway for a long moment, staring at the space where she'd been. The hallway smelled faintly of her perfume, something citrusy and warm that I'd come to associate with her laugh, her smile, the way she'd felt in my arms that night. I went back inside and poured myself a whiskey. The next 2 weeks were worse than the previous ones had been. At least when we'd been avoiding each other after our night together, there had been a charge to it. Now there was just a hollow ache that I tried very hard not to examine too closely. I threw myself into work with a vengeance. Tax season was approaching, and there were always clients who'd left everything to the last minute. I stayed late at the office, came home exhausted, and tried not to notice the silence from across the hall. Tried not to wonder what Mia was up to. I may have successfully banished thoughts of her when awake, but my subconscious was filled with thoughts of her. Her soft lips against mine, her beautiful soft hair. On a Thursday evening, I was fumbling with my keys, a bag of Thai takeaway in one hand and my mobile pressed between my ear and shoulder as my sister Sarah rattled on about our mother's upcoming birthday. And I told her we could just do a nice dinner, but you know Mum, she wants the whole family there, which means Uncle Peter and his new girlfriend who's apparently younger than me, and Daniel, are you even listening? Yes, I lied, finally getting my door open. Uncle Peter, young girlfriend, scandal. You're not listening. Sarah's voice turned shrewd. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Daniel. I sighed, shouldering into my flat and kicking the door shut behind me. "It's nothing, Sarah. Just work stress." "Is this about Mia again?" "What? No. Why would you think that?" "So what happened?" she continued as if I hadn't said a word. "Have you talked to her yet?" I set my takeaway on the kitchen counter and rubbed my face. I didn't respond. "Daniel Maurice Shepherd, tell me you talked to Mia," she said in her stern sisterly voice. "You sound like Mum, you know," I shot back. "Stop trying to distract me," she said. With a sigh I said, "We talked." Sarah was silent for a moment and then she asked, "She didn't want to date you?" "Actually, she did." I sighed again. "I'm not ready, sis." "Oh, Danny." I couldn't stand the pity I heard in her voice, so I quickly made up an excuse and hung up. It had been 3 years since Emily. I thought I had dealt with it. My sister was constantly saying Emily didn't deserve my joy. That I was literally letting her suck the joy out of my life. But what everyone forgets is that it wasn't Emily alone who had broken my heart. It was Marcus too. My best friend since high school. We had gone to the same university and we always said we would be brothers for life. With a glass of whiskey in my hand, my thoughts returned to Mia. I thought about her smile. And the way she'd kissed me that first time. Spontaneous and joyful because she'd landed a big account. And I'd been the first person she'd wanted to share it with. The way she'd laughed at my dry jokes. And praised the food I made for her like I was a Michelin chef. Sarah was right. And I knew she was right. But knowing it and doing something about it were two very different things. "Mia." "So tell me something I don't know yet about you," James said, smiling at me across the table. I hadn't deleted the app. Instead, I had swiped right on James' profile. He was my type on paper. After chatting for a week, we decided to meet for coffee. He was nice, a graphic designer. Funny. Good-looking in a scruffy, artistic way. He'd made me laugh on our chats, and when he'd suggested meeting up, I'd said yes without hesitation. I was moving on. This was me moving on. "Well," I said, taking a sip of my coffee, "you know I work in marketing. I'm originally from Manchester. But I've been in London for 5 months now. I also have an unhealthy obsession with true crime podcasts." "Unhealthy how?" "I once stayed up until 3 in the morning listening to a 12-part series about a cold case from the 70s. James laughed. "Okay, that's pretty unhealthy. But also kind of impressive." I smiled, but it felt forced. James was nice. He was exactly the kind of guy I should be interested in. So why did I keep thinking about Daniel? About the way he'd looked at me when he'd said he could only offer something physical, like it was costing him something to say it? "Stop it," I told myself firmly. "Daniel made his choice. You're making yours. What about you?" I asked, forcing myself to focus on James. "Tell me something interesting." As he launched into a story about a disastrous client meeting. I nodded and laughed in the right places. And tried very hard not to think about my grumpy neighbor. "Daniel." I heard her laugh before I saw her. I had come to the coffee house to finish off some work in a different environment. I had finished filing the tax forms for the last client and I was ready to go home and collapse on my sofa with a beer. That's when I heard Mia's voice. She was sitting at a table a few paces from me. A big plant hid me from view. She was not alone. She was with a man. He was scruffy looking, with the kind of artfully messy hair that probably took him 20 minutes to style. He was talking animatedly, and Mia was looking engrossed in whatever he was telling her. I felt a sharp stab of jealousy. I knew that was wrong. I had no right to care that Mia was dating. Especially after I had rejected her. I snapped my laptop shut and put it in my bag. I took my empty cup to the bin intent on getting out before she saw me. Mia laughed again and it felt like a punch to the gut. I found myself walking to their table. Mia's smile froze when she looked up at me. "Daniel." "Hi," she said with a small frown. "Hi, Mia." My voice came out rougher than I'd intended. "Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt." We both knew that's exactly what I meant to do. "You're not interrupting," she said, but there was something guarded in her expression now. "This is James. James, this is Daniel, my neighbor." "Nice to meet you," James said, extending a hand. I shook it automatically, barely registering his firm grip. I was too focused on Mia, on the way she wasn't quite meeting my eyes. "I should let you two get on with your evening," I said, already backing toward the exit. "Nice to meet you, James." I walked the mile or so home instead of taking the tube. I needed to clear my head. She was seeing someone. Of course, she was seeing someone. I'd told her I could only offer something physical, and she'd moved on. That was the healthy, sensible thing to do. So why did it feel like my heart was being ripped out of my chest? I had no answer. Mia. I couldn't concentrate on anything James was saying. He was lovely, really. Funny and charming and clearly interested in me. But all I could think about was the look on Daniel's face when he'd left. Why had he stopped by our table when it was clear this was a date? So I told him that if he wanted a logo that was both purple and orange, he should probably hire a magician instead of a designer, James finished, laughing. I laughed too, a beat too late. Yeah, that's funny. James's smile faded slightly. You okay? You seem a bit distracted. I'm fine, I said automatically. Then, because he deserved better than that, sorry. I'm just tired. It's been a long week. We can do this another time, James offered. I don't want to keep you if you're exhausted. He was being so nice about it. So understanding. Which somehow made me feel worse. Maybe that's best, I said. I'm sorry, James. I've had a really nice time, it's fine, he said, standing. Really? Can I see you again? I hesitated. I should say yes. James was exactly what I needed. Someone uncomplicated, someone who wasn't emotionally unavailable, and he actually wanted to date me properly. But when I opened my mouth, what came out was, can I think about it? I need to figure some things out. Understanding dawned in James's eyes. Is it the neighbor? He asked. Daniel. It's complicated. I said. It always is. He smiled, but it was sad. For what it's worth, the way he looked at you. That's not the look of a man who's over you. After parting ways with James, I took the stairs down to the underground. I was silently fuming. How dare he intrude on my date? He had rejected me. So he had no right to come over to my table all grumpy and growly. I built this up in my head, and by the time I reached our building, I was in a confrontational mood. I banged on his door and waited. He opened the door dressed in those gray joggers and no top. His chest was glistening like he was exercising. My gaze zeroed down to the V that disappeared down his joggers. When I looked back up, he was smirking. He raised an eyebrow and had the gall to say, "Have you seen enough?" That riled me up. "How dare you, Daniel," I spoke, walking past him into his apartment. I turned as he shut the door behind him. "Why did you interrupt my date?" Daniel. I knew Mia was angry. Her eyes were shooting fireworks at me. My body responded immediately. "I didn't interrupt anything," I said, crossing my arms over my chest. "I was just being polite. Saying hello to my neighbor." Bullshit. Mia's eyes flashed. "You knew exactly what you were doing. You came over to our table with that look on your face." "What look?" "That possessive, jealous look. Like you had any right to," she broke off, shaking her head. "You have no right, Daniel. You made it very clear what you wanted from me, and it wasn't a relationship." "I never said you couldn't date other people," I said, my voice coming out harder than I intended. "You're free to see whoever you want." "Then why did you look like you wanted to punch James in the face?" "I didn't," I stopped, running a hand through my hair. "Look, I was surprised to see you there, that's all." "Surprised?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You were surprised. So surprised that you had to come over and mark your territory." "I wasn't marking anything." "Then what were you doing?" She took a step closer, her chest heaving. "Because from where I was sitting, it looked like you were jealous. But that doesn't make any sense, does it? Because you only wanted something physical. You were very clear about that." The way she said physical made it sound dirty and cheap. "Mia, I started. No. She moved closer again, and I could smell her perfume, something floral and sweet that made my head spin. You don't get to do this. You don't get to reject me and then act like you have some claim on me. I'm not. I clenched my jaw, trying to find the right words. But there were none because she was correct. You're right. I have no claim on you. Then why do you care? Her voice cracked slightly. Why do you care if I'm on a date with James or anyone else? I don't. Liar. She was close enough now that I could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. You're lying. Fine. The word came out like a growl. You want the truth? I hated seeing you with him. I hated the way he made you laugh. I hated that he was sitting across from you, looking at you like. I stopped, my hands curling into fists at my sides. Like what? She challenged, tilting her chin up. Like he actually wants to date me? Like he's not afraid of a relationship? Like he has a right to you? And you think you do? No. Yes. I don't know. I was losing this argument, losing my grip on the careful control I'd maintained for weeks. I know I have no right. I know I'm the one who said we couldn't be more than physical. But seeing you with him made you jealous, she finished. Yes. The admission felt like it was torn from somewhere deep in my chest. Yes, I was jealous. I was so jealous I could barely see straight. She stared at me, her breathing rapid, her cheeks flushed. You have no right to be jealous. I know. You rejected me. I know. You said you couldn't give me what I wanted. I know. I took a step toward her, closing the distance between us. I know all of that, Mia. But it doesn't change the fact that I couldn't stand watching another man make you smile. That's not fair, she whispered, but she didn't back away. I know it's not fair. I was close enough now to touch her, but I kept my hands at my sides. I know I'm being selfish. I know I'm being an asshole. But I can't, I stopped, swallowing hard. I can't pretend I don't care. You can't have it both ways, Daniel. Her voice was softer now, but there was still fire in her eyes. You can't push me away and then get upset when I move on. I know. Then what do you want? She looked up at me, and I could see the hurt in her expression, the confusion. What do you actually want from me? I should have had an answer. I should have been able to tell her something rational, something that made sense. But all I could think about was how close she was, how her lips were slightly parted, how every cell in my body was screaming at me to close the distance between us. I started, but the words died in my throat. What? She demanded, her hands coming up to press against my chest. Tell me what you want. You. The word came out raw. Honest. I want you. For a moment, we just stood there, staring at each other. I could feel her hands on my chest. Could feel the rapid beat of her heart through her palms. The air between us was electric. Charged with weeks of tension and want. Daniel. She started, but I didn't let her finish. I closed the distance between us and kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't sweet. It was desperate. And hungry. Full of all the frustration and longing I'd been trying to suppress. My hands came up to cup her face, tilting her head back so I could deepen the kiss. She made a small sound in the back of her throat, and then she was kissing me back just as fiercely, her fingers curling into my chest. I backed her up against the wall, my body pressing against hers. Her hands slid up to my shoulders, her nails digging into my skin. I kissed her like I was drowning, and she was air. Like I'd been starving, and she was sustenance. She tasted like coffee and something sweet. And I couldn't get enough. Her leg hooked around my hip, and I groaned, my hand sliding down to grip her thigh. This was what I'd been denying myself, what I'd been trying so hard to resist. And now that I had her in my arms again, I couldn't remember why I'd ever thought I could stay away. Daniel. She gasped against my mouth. And the sound of my name on her lips nearly undid me. I kissed along her jaw, down her neck, feeling her pulse racing beneath my lips. Her hands were in my hair now, tugging, and I loved the slight sting of it. I wanted to pick her up, carry her to my bedroom, and spend the rest of the night showing her exactly how much I wanted her. But then she went still. "Wait," she breathed, her hands moving from my hair to my chest, pushing lightly. "Wait, stop." I pulled back immediately, my chest heaving. "Mia," I breathed her name. But she cut me short. "No." She ducked under my arm, putting distance between us. Her lips were swollen from my kisses. Her hair mussed. And she looked absolutely beautiful. "No. We can't. I can't do this." "Mia," I tried again, but she stopped me with a raised hand. "This doesn't change anything," she said. And I could hear the tears in her voice even though her eyes were dry. "Kissing me doesn't change the fact that you don't want a relationship. It doesn't change the fact that you can't give me what I need." "Maybe I was wrong," I said desperately. "Maybe. Maybe isn't good enough." She wrapped her arms around herself, and I hated that she felt like she needed to protect herself from me. "I can't do this, Daniel. I can't be with someone who's only half in. I can't keep hoping that you'll change your mind when you've made it clear that you won't. I'm trying to tell you that I might have been wrong about what I want." "Might have been." She laughed, but it was a broken sound. "You might have been wrong. That's not exactly a ringing endorsement." "Mia. I need to go." She moved toward the door, and I wanted to stop her. Wanted to pull her back into my arms. And kiss her until she forgot all her very valid objections. "I need to think." She spoke. "Don't go." I pleaded. She paused with her hand on the doorknob, looking back at me over her shoulder. "You hurt me, Daniel. When you rejected me, you hurt me. And I'm not going to let you do it again just because you got jealous seeing me with someone else. That's not what this is. Isn't it?" She turned the knob. "Mia, wait." But she was already gone, the door closing softly behind her. I stood there in my living room, my heart pounding, my lips still tingling from her kiss. I could still smell her perfume in the air, could still feel the ghost of her touch on my skin. I'd finally admitted that I wanted her. I'd finally let myself kiss her the way I'd been dreaming about for weeks. And I'd still managed to lose her. "Daniel." I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mia standing in my doorway, steady and disappointed. Telling me that, might have, wasn't enough. She was right. I'd said the words without committing to them. I'd reached for her without offering anything solid to hold on to. It was no wonder she'd walked away. My hypothesis that love didn't last, and that people were not faithful, was based on my experience with Emily and Marcus. But the hypothesis was wrong on too many occasions to be accepted as the truth. I had seen many people who were happily married. My sister has been with her partner for more than 8 years. My parents were celebrating their golden anniversary. It was time I faced the truth. Emily hadn't broken me because I loved her. She'd broken me because she had cheated and lied to me. I had broken because my best friend had lied. Because 2 people I trusted had chosen themselves without regard for the damage they left behind. That wasn't love. That was selfishness. And somewhere along the way, I decided the safest thing to do was treat every future feeling as a threat, as something that would inevitably turn on me. Mia had never lied. She'd been honest from the start. About wanting more. About walking away when she wasn't getting it. She had chosen herself instead of staying somewhere uncertain. If anything, she'd been braver than I had. I sat at the edge of my bed as the city woke, light creeping through the blinds, and faced the undeniable truth. I liked having Mia in my life. Enough to give her my all. What happened to me wasn't a rule. It wasn't a warning. It was just 2 people who behaved badly. And I'd let their choices dictate my life. I wanted Mia. I wanted her laughter in my quiet. Her steadiness against my fear. Her presence, fully, openly, even if it scared me. Especially because it scared me. By the time I crossed the hallway, my hands were steady. I knocked on her door. It took a moment before the door opened. Mia stood there, guarded but calm. "Daniel," she said. "Can we talk?" I said. She studied me for a long second, then stepped aside. "I was wrong," I said as soon as she closed the door. Her expression didn't change, but she listened. "I told myself love wasn't real because it hurt once," I continued. "But that wasn't love failing. That was two people choosing badly. And I've been punishing everyone else and myself for it ever since." I swallowed. "You deserve to know why," I said quietly. Mia didn't interrupt. She just waited. "I was engaged once," I said. "To someone I trusted completely. And she cheated on me with my best friend. The night I caught them wasn't the first time either. They wanted me to marry her and they would continue with their affair. I know now that she didn't love me. Nor did my friend. They chose each other, and I was the collateral damage." Her breath caught, just slightly. "I built walls around me after that," I continued. "No one would hurt me like that again. For 3 years I lived with my walls. Unfeeling, not healing. Then you moved in with your noise and joie de vivre. Somehow you destroyed my walls without me noticing." I met her eyes. "Then you kissed me, and I felt it. When you stayed the night. I felt more than I was prepared for. And instead of being honest about that, I reduced it. I made it smaller. Physical. Safer." My voice roughened. "That was on me. Not you." Silence stretched between us. "Seeing you with someone else didn't hurt because I thought I owned you," I said. "It hurt because I realized I'd pushed away the one person who I'd come to care for. Someone who had been open and honest to me." I took a breath. "I have feelings for you, Mia. Real ones. And I don't want to approach you halfway ever again. I'm not asking you to trust me blindly. I'm asking if I can earn your trust properly. From the beginning." I blew my breath out. "I'm asking if we can start fresh. Properly. No assumptions. Just honesty." "Mia." I didn't expect Daniel to be knocking on my door after last night. I certainly didn't expect him to open up to me. I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't understand him, but because I finally did. His fear wasn't about me. It never had been. It was about what he'd lost. Before he ever met me. And how tightly he'd held onto that loss as proof of how relationships ended. I thought about the way he'd cooked for me without asking. The way he'd given me his jumper in the rain. He had shown he cared. He wasn't asking me to save him or wait for him. He was standing in front of me, open in a way I hadn't seen before, and offering effort. I could walk away. I knew that. "I want openness," I said finally, "and a chance to work at this. You need to be sure you want it too." He nodded. "That's fair." I held his gaze. "I believe people can grow," I said. "And I believe honesty matters more than perfection." I took a breath. "So yes, I'll give us a chance." He let out a breath that sounded suspiciously like relief. He moved forward. I thought he would give me a hug. Instead he held out his hand. "Hi," he said with a sheepish grin. "I'm Daniel. Your neighbor in 3B. A smile tugged at my mouth. "Would you like to grab a coffee sometime?" Thank you for staying with Mia and Daniel. For trusting the quiet moments, the pauses. This was their story, and I'm so glad you listened to the end. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more Arloon romance. New stories are coming soon. Thank you for listening.